Warning, trigger warning, domestic and sexual abuse, 18 plus content. And for the biggest warning of all, the internet's least favorite N-word, no, not that one. Glance on Instagram Reels for 5 seconds, the internet loves that word for some reason. I mean nuance. The internet can't conceptualize the idea of ambiguity on one side or another, not being 100% right 100% of the time, or even to be their proven position. The internet's the place where people turn the concept of being fat into a war zone of either encouraging unhealthy lifestyles or bullying them until they drop more than just weight. Real world is pretty dumb, but they're smart enough to realize, hey, I can be nice to overweight people, but also not encourage them to double down on unhealthy habits. Politeness is pretty crazy. This logic is what the internet uses for almost every problem. If you see a nail and your only weapon is not even a hammer, more just like a thermonuclear bomb, I'm sorry, you're getting nuked. And it's the same thing for problems this depressing, like continuous sexual assault. Oh boy, yeah, fun video. Oh boy. I'm just gonna be as direct as I can all video, not gonna pad out or overly explain, because the more detail I give, the more people can skew my words for their agenda. Bro, I've been seeing Hazbin toxicity circle around the same few arguments for like a year now, and I just gotta say my piece. I've been trying to ignore it until it goes away. It's not going away, bro. So controversial show Hazbin Hotel, even more controversial 4th episode, Masquerade, depicted the trauma and coping mechanisms of being abused in work environments, let's just say, and varying levels of consent. Many of them being flavors of the non-consensual type. It's a little more complicated than that, but that's the rundown. There is a song where one of the characters reassures Angel, thus the victim, in an unconventional way. Starts off by calling him a loser with an upbeat tone. If you pay attention to the lyrics, it's basically, we're both losers, what happened to you and is still happening sucks, but you don't have to suffer alone, and we can mutually help each other get through the pain. Limus, another small has-been detractor, made a video saying the depiction was bad. Limus was also a survivor of this type of stuff, so the video came from a personal place. Twitter responds, it's not good. It started pretty constructive, honestly, with the first tweet pretty accurately criticizing and correcting something in the original video. But it took one reply before they became the same toxic sludge that makes up this person's avatar. I'm not saying that to be insulting, they are covered in slime, I don't know why. Within one comment, Twitter of course becomes a war zone of just this.
Am I the only one who understands the complexities of this ambitious cinematic masterpiece? This movie isn't stupid! You're stupid!
With bad faith misinterpretations on every side, of course. Unsurprisingly, Twitter users will claim to defend victims only to attack them. We've seen that plenty this year. The thing that's ironic is Hazbin fans citing people claiming that victims loved and appreciated the representation, and now they're mad at people who do not appreciate or love the representation. It's the internet. Unfortunately, it's bound to be toxic, man. It is. That's just how it be like. But I think the take-home message isn't picking a side, back to that nuance thing. First, we can't act like victims are the only ones allowed to have an opinion, or that they are always in the right. The show itself called Angel Dust out for harassing people while he's a victim of a much worse version of that. It should be approached, cautiously, kindly. However, obviously the victims are not quote-unquote objectively correct. We have multiple victims with antithetical interpretations that can't both be simultaneously the absolutely correct answer. Now, I could be a coward and say it's always 100% up to subjective opinion. I don't think that's true either. Limus's video, she does have some things as shown by the tweet that I would go as far as to say cross from a different interpretation to contradictory and incorrect.
It's another upbeat song, except this time it's about how your abuse isn't unique and you need to stop whining like a bitch and find company in other people who are in the same situation as you. What a great message to send. It doesn't even work in this show's context because it's comparing Angel and Husk's situations like they are at all similar.
Okay, one thing I wasn't really planning on in the script that I just see a lot is people get hyper literal and fixate on things like, even if situations aren't one-to-one. If someone also suffered and they want to help you, I don't think going over the trauma Olympics is going to help anyone, just saying. Like it's not a competition, guys. And the follow-up video says some things that I have issues with as well.
Hell of a Boss is just a whole other example because the main character of the show, like Blitzo, is literally just an emotionally manipulative piece of shit who basically like is using Stolas just to get like a portal from him. And then you get people online being like, actually Blitzo is the victim. Okay. I get that people are gonna think that because their whole idea of like what classifies as a victim or not is basically fucked up because of the show. And that's the thing. I loved Hell of a Boss and like the first, and the pilot in the first 2 episodes, and then after that I just stopped.
Oh, hell no.
Yeah, not only is it antagonistic to people who disagree with her by praising it like people have a messed up interpretation of abuse solely because of the show, which kind of sounds a little weird, but whatever. Maybe misspoke, I don't know. But then proceeds to have a messed up interpretation and said they didn't see the whole show. They didn't even see like past the first 2 episodes, which might include the non-canon pilot. So they might have not even seen the 2nd episode. Which it's just Blitzo stealing an important book and then coerced into keeping it, and his job only through favors. Once again, this is ignoring soft retcons that make Stolas more sympathetic, but also ignores stuff happening later that same season that makes it worse, given that Harvest Moon basically shows that imps can't be bosses normally and are a rich person's pet essentially, which makes this way more justified as a decision to rise up against oppressors as well as feeding you and your workers every day. I say this stuff not to pile on or to be a dick. I say this because you can still criticize or point out anyone is wrong without being a dick, and I'm trying not to be one. And being a victim doesn't make you correct necessarily. Once again, he admitted to not seeing the entire show and made a semi-incorrect assertion. Even though it's a controversial subject, there's just stuff that she blatantly has not seen yet that would recontextualize everything. Correcting stuff like that I think it's still warranted. Yeah, like once again, Stolas is controversial. But they stopped watching before Lululand, where Stolas was being told to stop harassing Blitzo in front of his daughter in a marriage falling apart, and he kept doing it like all episode. He kept getting more graphic and nasty with his flirting and kept getting told no. I'm not an expert on this, but if you don't want to be sexually harassed and they keep doing it, that's called sexual harassment, okay? I don't know, bro. Maybe I'm just crazy. I don't think there's any denial that both parties in the show are at least somewhat in the wrong. I would like to compromise based on that. That's my Green New Deal. And even if you think I'm being too harsh or arrogant to assert some of my claims as corrections and not opinions, I do think at the very least people should hear each other out. It's complex. I have definitely seen mixed responses to every piece of media showcasing any of these serious subjects. Berserk, one of the most beloved pieces of media on Earth, yet it has some detractors claiming it was fetishizing abuse. I see something similar here. Hazbin has a weird community combining emotional people with a lot of nerdy analytical people. Like, please don't let it become Steven Universe 2.0, where it's a back and forth between essays and toxic detractors with even more toxic essays in response. It's become that. I'm seeing the conspiracy theories now. Great. Ignoring that, even though a lot of nuances are lost on Twitter, and a lot of them are obvious, I'm not sure this one will be. People would probably see someone with experience with abuse as a figure of authority on a piece of media discussing said abuse. And, you know, to a certain extent, they should be seen as an authority figure with experience as well as the emotional trauma that is reminded with this piece of media. It'd be weird to see people thinking it's offensive representation, while others who are also victims think it's cathartic representation, which is something really important I want to emphasize before someone immediately takes me out of context on twitter.com. Okay, I see you, I know you're doing it, and you're gonna do it despite me ranting about you. So, if someone pulls that stunt, reply with this following clip. Everyone deals with trauma differently. Everyone watches shows differently. Everyone's entertained differently. Everyone's different. No one is in the wrong for disagreeing with someone who likes the way they portrayed a similar relatable abuse situation, but no one's in the wrong for the opposite either. Because once again, not everyone's going to cope the same way. Don't mitigate and dismiss other people's trauma just because you're stuck in your own world. I want to make that clear, okay? I've been seeing too many people just do that. Also, just don't be disrespectful to people if you do think they're wrong. Don't be disrespectful to victims, whether or not you yourself are a victim, okay? It's pretty simple at the end of the day.
So, but that's why I feel like a lot of them just either don't care enough about it, or they only really bring it up so that they can further move along their argument about, like, well, Husk was a victim of abuse as well. He sold his soul to the devil. That's not abuse. Like, I know we're gonna talk about, yeah, what happened to him is bad, but that's not abuse.
Hot take, slavery is abusive. And honestly, I think that's really the main thing, is that people have one stance, one perspective, and they want that one to be the correct one and try to turn it into an argument. And I think that's literally impossible for something like this, because trauma is so weird and vague, so everyone's gonna react differently. Everyone's going to feel different about seeing it. I mean, that's why the warnings even exist in the first place. So don't make it about who's right, who's wrong, who's evil. I got a new conspiracy saying that Vivzy hates all the abuse victims. Oh, I feel so represented. Everyone can feel iffy, can feel bad, can feel good seeing something, okay? They're not wrong for doing so. Another thing with this specific portrayal of it that gets weird is a lot of people almost feel like the hypersexualization coping mechanism mocks people who aren't coping in the same way, because it kind of is, it's almost the opposite of the way a lot of people cope. It's very strange. I don't think trying to apply everything that happens to someone else to happening to you will ever be perfect. And this is ironic because, yes, Husk is trying to do that. People on Twitter are criticizing Husk for doing it while doing it themselves. It's never going to be perfect. And if you think that maybe Husk, even though like the interpretation of the song wasn't obviously literal, I can see why people would at least be a little off-put by some of it. So I get that for sure, even though I disagree with a lot of it. Something I want to just make clear is something I've kind of been pushing even before I started this channel. If you're criticizing others, you should definitely expect criticism yourself, and you should be better at quote-unquote taking criticism than others. And a lot of people, they tend to just want to make an assertion and want to just they don't want a discussion, they just want to be correct. They don't want to engage. They just want to, sometimes they'll talk about being harassed if someone disagrees and they make a bad point. So especially with something that's sensitive and something people state ubiquitously, there's definitely a middle ground. And you should always expect discussion online. Honestly, you should expect worse given it's the internet, but you shouldn't tolerate worse. Or I won't justify it, actually. Now that I think about it, no. The internet just sucks, damn it. I don't have a happy ending there. But once again, there's definitely a difference between criticism and harassment. And there's, on Twitter especially, it becomes a mixed bag. So people will attack genuine concerns and lump it with genuine harassment. So keep that in mind as well. Sometimes people also blur the lines, add insults while they're criticizing. So even that part's kind of complicated. All I can say is I hope that anyone who wants to engage in conversation is prepared to, once again, engage. Even though I criticized a lot of their points in this video, want to give a shout out to fellow small animation indie critic Limus. Well, they mostly talk about Omari from what I'm seeing, as well as taking this Twitter nuke reasonably well. I've seen much worse crash outs. So feel free to sub to them. And if you like animation, sub to allocations if this YouTube thing becomes at all sustainable. and you want even more dark subject matter, I will traumatize myself going through the Class of 09's legacy, because that is a video I want to make, but it requires a full-time job of mental health in order to even start. Yeah, you thought Hazbin Hotel had intense subjects? My god.